So now we'd like to introduce Don Newman, who is from the New Jersey Business Action Center, and he will tell you a little bit about himself and about his organization, and then all about what you need to do to register a business in New Jersey. So take it away. Thank you for joining us today, Don.
You're welcome. Thank you very much for having me. My presentation today is going to be about registering a business, basically the nuts and bolts of what you need to do to start a business. I'm going to, if you don't mind, I am going to turn off my camera only because sometimes I have bandwidth issues, and I think the additional video may cause a problem. So as they said, I'm with the New Jersey Business Action Center. The New Jersey Business Action Center is part of the Secretary of State's office. We've been around for a very long time in different iterations. We started out as part of the Commerce and Economic Growth Commission. We got spun off. We were for a short period of time part of the EDA, and now we've been spun off again, and we're part of the Secretary of State's office. But that's been true of about 12 years, about 12 years now. So we do have a lot of experience in working with business community on every level. The one way to contact us is by calling 1-800-JERSEY-7. My staff answers that phone. So if you have a business question, you can always reach out to us there. We're broken up into different units, and I'm going to go through these really quickly, just so you can get an idea, because we have a lot to cover about the registration process. So we have an Office of Business Advocacy. They work on projects. So if you're looking to expand a business and you need to build an addition onto a building or build a new building or whatever that kind of long-term process, so you have a big regulatory matter you're dealing with the Department of Environmental Protection or whomever, they can help you sort of navigate that. We have an export promotion team that helps small businesses become exporters. We're going to be taking, we also, as part of that, we have a STEP grant, a State Trade Expansion Program grant, to help businesses that want to be exporters. And we're going to be taking about a dozen New Jersey food and beverage manufacturers to the Fancy Food Show in New York. And their registration fees are going to be paid for through that STEP program so that they can expand their footprint in the global economy instead of just staying within the United States. Planning Advocacy is a team that works with municipalities to help them with their master plans and some other areas of planning to help the towns support economic growth as well as protect the environment and manage their infrastructure. Motion Picture and Television Commission falls under our jurisdiction as well. So if you have any budding movie producers out there, just let me know. We also can assist a municipality or even a private person who has an interesting location that they think may be of interest to a television production or a movie production. We can capture some photographs and promote that as a potential location for a production. We have some great, we've been very successful the last 2 years. We have some great productions that have taken place in New Jersey. The last M. Night Shyamalan movie was filmed here in New Jersey. West Side Story, Steven Spielberg was filmed in here. We've done some Marvel movies. So there's some great opportunities for motion picture and television. We have a brand new office, which is Municipal and District Revitalization. This has actually been on my wish list for quite some time. We have Jeff Bueller, who's just joined our team, who's come from other state agencies. And we're working with the municipality and your local districts, your SIDS, your special improvement districts, your business improvement districts, the UEZ zones, your main streets. He's going to be working with them to help revitalize those areas. And I work with the small business advocacy team. That's the team I work with. So I'll tell you a little bit more about us as we move along. But today's topic is really about starting a business. We do publish a starting a business checklist, which I have a link here. So when you get these slides, you'll be able to take a look at that checklist. But there's also a new website that the Office of Innovation has put together, and that's business.nj.gov. It's the state business website. Although it's the Governor's Office of Innovation that runs that site, we are very actively involved in the content on that site. I meet twice a week with people from the innovation team to walk people through that. And there's a tool on there called the Business Navigator. If I had time, I would show it to you today. I don't think we're going to have time, but the Navigator allows you to answer a series of onboarding questions, and then it builds a roadmap to help you navigate the steps of starting a business. And it covers everything about registration that we're going to talk about today. Also covers things like zoning and writing a business plan, and also licensing and certifications. People will sometimes say to me, do I need a business license? There's no general business license in the state of New Jersey. What they're probably referring to is a business registration certificate, which is what we're going to talk about today. That is not a license. Licenses are a physician has a medical license, a bar has a liquor license, a plumber has a plumbing license. There are some professions, occupations, or products that do require additional licensing. If you have questions on that, this licensing guide can help you, or you're welcome to reach out to me to ask whether or not you need a license. One of the features on business.nj.gov is a live chat where you can go in, submit a question. My staff will respond. It is not a bot, it's a live operator, and those people that are answering will work for me. You could also ask to speak to me through that chat, and they'll get the conversation over to me sooner or later. It might take a little while because sometimes I'm doing webinars like this, but I can help you out. The other nice feature about it is we have a connection directly to the Division of Taxation. So you have a tax question, we'll transfer it to taxation. If you have a question about your employer accounts over the Department of Labor, we can send you there. Or if you have a question about financing and incentives through the EDA, we can connect you directly within the chat platform to the EDA. So that's a great feature. The Navigator and the live chat are the two highlights that I want to emphasize on this call for you to take a look at. All right. This is actually the slide about the live chat. And like I say, you'll get an immediate answer during normal business hours from one of our experts. When I say immediate, less than 5 minutes, you'll have somebody on that line talking to you. All right. So today we're talking about registering a business. So these are the first thing you should do is you should be writing a comprehensive and well-researched business plan. The SCORE people can help you with that. There are other resources that you can reach out to try to get help writing a business plan. But the business plan is going to inform you on everything else that you do. So the very first question you're going to have to answer before you even get started is, what kind of business type are you going to start? What kind of business organization are you going to start? Sole proprietorship, general partnership, limited liability company, and you'll see the others that are available to you in New Jersey listed here. You'll hear terms that I want to make sure you have an understanding of, and that is a legal entity. So a sole proprietorship and a general partnership are not legal entities. So if you want to do business as a sole proprietor or a general partnership, you are the business. So you have no protection from liability from the business liabilities as an individual, and you are doing businesses yourself. Legal entities have legal standing. They are permitted to have a contract to purchase real estate. They can be a party to a legal action, so they can get sued. They can sue other people. So if you own a limited liability company, it's not you suing, it's the LLC suing. If you own a corporation, it's not you suing someone, it's the corporation or being sued. And that separation of your personal life and your legal entity is very important to kind of get into your head, because you want to treat them separately so that you can maintain the benefits of having a legal entity. The big benefit there is a protection against personal liability for things that happen in your company. So I do recommend that people make an informed decision about how they want to organize their business. So one of the questions I get is, which is best? Well, it really depends on your business model and some of the specifics about what you're trying to do. Long term, you don't want to make these decisions short term, you want to make them long term, but you want to be aware of the pros and cons of each of these different entities and ways to organize a business, and appropriately choose which one is best. Now, I can't give you legal advice and I can't give you accounting advice, so I really can't tell you which one is best, but I'm going to show you the next slide. Since January, whoops, there it is. Since January of this year, these are the number of businesses that were created in each of the different categories. I can't look at sole proprietorships or general partnerships because, like I said, they're not legal entities. So there is nothing for me to look up. Everything they do is tax related, and that's confidential. But the legal entities, you'll see that limited liability companies make up 54,000 businesses that were registered since January 1st. For-profit corporations are 5,100, and so on. Now, it's a logical fallacy for me to say that the most popular one is therefore the best, but I think you can make some assumptions here about what is the organization that is the most popular, and therefore may be the right fit for you. But like I said, you may have circumstances where that would not be true. All right, so don't make you don't want to make those kinds of assumptions too easily. All right, so the first step is to see if the name is available, the name that you want to use for your business. Now, if you're a sole proprietorship or a general partnership, oops, I'm sorry. There we go. Keep hitting the button by mistake. So if you're a sole proprietorship or a general partnership only, you have to go to the county clerk's office to register the trade name for your company. Now, what I mean by a trade name is your business, the name you call yourself when you're a sole proprietorship or a general partnership is a fictitious name that, because it's you doing businesses yourself, or you and your other partners doing businesses yourselves. So the trade name is the name that you're authorized to use. So in this situation, you go to the county clerk, you register a trade name, costs you $50. You're responsible for registering that name in every county in which you do business. So if you're going to be doing business in multiple counties, you're going to register in your trade name in multiple counties. The name is secure only in that county in which you've registered it. So if you're registered in Cape May and you find out that somebody's using your name in Bergen County, doesn't mean you don't have a right to that name, but it's going to be a little bit more difficult for you to navigate that. All right, but legal entities are what I want to talk to you about. So the very first thing you should do, so you're going to go to this website and you're going to see that the name is available. You cannot have the same name as another name, another business in the state. So if your name is too close to another business, it's going to not be available, and you'll have to use a different name. So that's the first step. Let's make sure that the name is available. The other thing is I want to mention is that you'll see it on the website, an opportunity to reserve a business name. Typically, that is a bad idea to reserve a business name. It blocks the name for 6 months. The only reason why you would want to do that is, let's say I want to use this name, but I'm not ready to start my business yet. I'm working on a website. I'm working on some branding. I want to do some things behind the scenes before I start my business, and I'm not going to start it for 6 months. Okay, then go ahead and reserve it. But that's pretty unusual. If I check the name availability this morning and I'm not going to start it until tomorrow, chances are somebody taking that name in that 24 hours periods are pretty slim, and it will block you from using the online services we're going to be talking about today, and you'll have to go paper. Don't reserve your business name unless there's a legitimate reason to do so. All right, there are some words that are not permitted. These are restricted words. Some of them are obvious, bank. If you're not a bank, you can't use the word bank. Some you need special permission to use, but you may run into that issue if the name, if you're trying to use a restricted name. Now that you have gone through the process of checking your name, you have your business plan ready. The next step is to apply for an employer identification number, or an EIN. This is the first of 3 very important numbers that we're going to talk about throughout this process. It's a 9-digit number. It's sometimes referred to as a social security number for your business. You'll also see it referred to as an FEIN, a federal employee identification number. You'll also see it referred to as a federal tax ID number. Those are all accurate, but the official name is an employer identification number, or EIN. You get this from the IRS. The IRS does not create LLCs or corporations or any other legal entity. It is simply a registration for taxes. So don't be confused. I have so many people tell me I've started my LLC 2 years ago, and when I tell them to send me their documentation, they send me the SS4 form from the IRS issuing them the EIN number. That did not create their business. But the IRS doesn't care. You send them a check and a tax return, they're going to just accept it. They're not going to go back to the states to make sure that you were properly formed. So get your EIN number. That would be the step after you've confirmed that the name is available. All right. Now you're ready. Now you have your EIN number. Now you're ready to start to go through the process of forming and registering your business with the state. All right. So there's a couple of things you'll need. You'll need to designate a registered agent. I always kind of give the formal definition. A registered agent is the person authorized by the company to accept service or process on behalf of the company. What that means is, when there are certain legal documents that have to be handed to a person who, if I want to serve, as I mentioned before, your legal entities do have can be a party to a legal action. So if I want to send you a summons, if I want to deliver a summons to your LLC, who do I serve it on? And the answer is your registered agent. That's what it's for. And they also will receive other legal matters that are not sort of dependent on process service. So you have to maintain a registered agent. You can serve as your own registered agent. That is not a problem, as long as you're located in New Jersey and have a New Jersey address, and they're available there. If you don't, or if you just don't want to serve as your own registered agent, any individual can serve, as long as they have a New Jersey address. So if your Aunt Sally wants to serve, that's fine. If you have an old college roommate, but it is a trusted position because there is legal ramifications if your company gets served and you don't respond, that kind of thing. So you do want to make sure it's a trusted person, but you could also hire someone to do it. So if you're in business and you're going to be doing business in multiple states, you'll probably want to hire a registered agent service that will provide that service for you. And I'll show you something on a slide later, but a registered agent has in good standing with the state, and they'll have a registered agent number identifying them in the state records. But they do charge for that service. So it's up to you whether or not it's something you need. Again, if you're going to be doing business in multiple states, you can usually get a registered agent service that is either regional or sometimes even national, where they can serve for you in every state that you're registered in.
So Don, I have a question.
Sure.
Can you
Absolutely.
have multiple registered agents?
No, be one registered agent. You can change them at any time, but it'll be one within the state of New Jersey. If you're doing business in other states, yes, you could have multiple registered agents in those states. In the other states, you'll have a different registered agent because, again, they're going to be serving documents on that registered agent in that state. So yes, someone could serve in all of them if they're set up that way. But if you're using individuals and you're using Aunt Sally in Pennsylvania and your old college buddy in New York and someone else in Delaware, that's perfectly fine. But within the state, it'll be one.
Thank you.
No problem. The other thing that you can is the North American Industrial Classification System code. Or sometimes we just refer to as a NAICS code. I recommend that you look that up first. There is a lookup service while you're doing your registration in the online forms. I recommend going to census.gov/NAICS and looking up your 6-digit code yourself. It's a little bit tricky to find them, so I don't want you to be in the middle of a process online trying to figure out your code and get frustrated. I'd rather have you do it first, and I can help you with that. I can't pick the code for you. The codes are 6-digit codes that are used really just for statistical information about businesses that are registering. There is no code police that are going to come down and shut down your business because you used the wrong code. So don't get anxious over this, but do try to find a code that matches your business model as best you can. So it might be retail electronics, manufacturing of nutraceuticals, whatever the code, and then you'll have a 6-digit code associated to that. So find your code ahead of time, saves you a lot of stress while you're trying to get through the process. All right. But again, don't be anxious over it. Just pick the code that works best for you. There's nobody going to give you a hard time if you pick the wrong code. It's really just for statistical data. The only time it comes into play is if there's a program that is specific to specific industries. They may look at your NAICS code to make sure you're a member of that industry. So that's and that's pretty rare. I know of like 1 or 2 programs in the last 20 years that was an issue. So don't get too stressed out over that. All right. So now that you have that, it's time to get started. And this is the website that you would go to. I would suggest you go to. Now, if you use the navigator that I mentioned before, it directly connects to this website. So you can form your legal entity through the website, through the navigator rather. It'll be interfacing with this website, or you can just go to this direct website. And again, because of the nature of this call, I'm going to assume that everyone's going to be a domestic legal entity. The difference between a domestic and a foreign is that foreign entities mean they were formed outside the state. Doesn't mean outside the country, means outside the state. And as you see some of the slides ahead of time, you'll see where we ask whether you're a domestic limited liability company or a foreign limited liability company or a domestic for-profit corporation and so on. At the end of this process, you're going to get a 10-digit entity ID number, not to be confused with the 9-digit EIN number that we've already talked about. So like I said, there are going to be a few numbers that you should have in your business records and readily available to you moving forward. And the entity ID number is one of those. The purpose of the entity ID number, one of the reasons why you want it, because every year you're going to have a annual report due for your legal entity. So that annual report is has to be done on the last day of the month in the month that you created your legal entity. So you'll want to have that available to you to answer those questions. And you're also going to need it to register for taxes, which is the second step that is listed on this website. You'll see that this is what the website looks like. No, I don't expect you to be able to read this, but I wanted to kind of give you a feel for what it's going to look like. And that big red arrow is the first step for doing a legal entity. So that's what you're going to be looking for. File for your certificate of formation. If you were a foreign entity, you would be getting a certificate of authorization, but you're going to be filing for your certificate of formation. All right. I kind of blew it up a little bit. It got a little less clear, but I just wanted to, again, make sure that you could see where you're going. The fee for this is $125 for for-profit entities. If you happen to be a nonprofit, it's only $75. I'm not really going to cover nonprofits too much here. There are some things that we should talk about if you're going to be a nonprofit, So you can reach out to me and we can talk about that. All right. And this is when you click on it, this will be the page that you're going to see. Don't click where in the section there where it says starting a business and it talks about resources, and people click on that starting a business and they get into this loop and they can't figure out where they're going. That's because they missed that little orange button on the bottom. It says get started. That's the button you're going to be looking for. So click on that button to get started. Bear with me here. There we go. All right. This is the first page that you're going to see. Excuse me. First, it's going to ask you what type of business you're going to start and your business name. Business name is going to be the one that you searched for previously, except you're not going to have a designator on it. What do I mean by a designator? Well, you see companies' names with, ABC Food and Beverage LLC. The LLC is the designator, or ABC Food and Beverage Inc. The Inc. would be the designator, and you don't want to select a designator at this point. All right. And again, here's the drop down for the business type. So again, the most common one that, as we already discussed, is New Jersey Domestic Limited Liability Company. You could also be a for-profit corporation. That would be a C Corp. Although that is, I'm going to focus really on LLCs, but because that is the most popular, but I am going to mention corporations a little bit. So if you form a corporation, you're going to be formed as a C Corp. That's a tax issue. That's how you're going to pay your taxes. And it makes you subject to corporate business taxes, and you would have to file a corporate tax return. However, and there's some very big disadvantages of doing that if you're a small business, with only 1 or 2 stockholders. However, if you are, you can elect with the IRS to be an S Corp. That allows pass-through onto your personal income taxes. That is probably the most, if you're going to be a corporation, that would be probably the way to go for you. There's a new rule in New Jersey that only came into effect January 1st. It used to be that you had to elect to be treated as an S Corp. Now all you have to do is get the federal designation as an S Corp, and we'll accept that here in New Jersey as well. So it allows you to have pass-through. There's still some disadvantages over the LLC, one of those being a minimum corporate business tax obligation that you'll have. So make sure you're making a good decision if that's the way you go. And as I said, submit the name without the designator. All right. And this
Don,
is
we had a question here from somebody. Do
Sure.
you mind if I interrupt you?
I have no problem with you interrupting me.
Okay, so someone is asking a question about, they're looking to convert from an S Corp to an LLC in New Jersey. Is that something that they should be doing? What's involved in doing that? Do you have that? Do you know that?
Yeah, so you can't just convert from an S Corp to an LLC. You would have to close the S Corp and form the LLC. That may be something you'll want to do. You want to crunch the numbers, make sure it makes sense, talk to your accountant. Again, there are some advantages of an LLC that you don't have with a corporation, but there are some advantages of a corporation over an LLC, especially if you're going out to look for some financial infusion into your business, because you can convert back to a C Corp and issue stock. There's advantages to it that way as well. So there are some pros and cons. I would talk to your accountant, make sure that it's a good idea, because like I say, you will have to close the S Corp, close the corporation, and then start fresh with an LLC. There's some complications with the name availability when you do that. You want to talk to me, and you'll probably want to do it. Make the changes online, not online, but on paper. That way we can have a human being looking at the document as opposed to a computer trying to spit this out for you. But yes, it is like I say, you can't convert it. You're going to close one and create a new one. And we can talk a little bit more about that on offline. And you'll have my contact information at the end. All right. So the next question is going to be that employer identification number that we talked about, the EIN number. That is, there's a 3-digit code on the end, 000. This kind of spills the beans. I don't usually tell people this, but that's essentially what the state tax ID number will be. We'll have 3 zeros added to the end. This is where you're going to put in your NAICS code. Your duration, for most people, it's going to be perpetual or indefinite or whatever words you'd like to put in there. And usually you want an effective date of immediately, but you could set it for a month from now or 2 months from now if you wanted to. But duration is a question that can come up if you have a sort of a special purpose LLC that you're putting together. So for example, if you and another company decided to go on a joint venture and you're going to create another entity that's only going to do that project, and when that project is done, dissolve it. A great example of this, I used to be in the construction business. Developers do this all the time. If they have a development going on because of the liability, we talked a little bit before about how the entity sort of insulates the owner from the liability. So you would create an LLC for one development project. And if you have another development project, you would create a different LLC for that one, and so on, so that one failed project doesn't take down the whole company. It's isolated just to that LLC. So that would be one of the reasons why you may have a duration, because that project is going to last me for 1.5 years. So I'm going to put in a duration period of 1.5 years for keeping that the LLC active. All right. So that's why you have that question. Business purpose. Again, here's another one of those anxiety questions where don't get anxious over. I'm going to sell, homemade jewelry. That's your business purpose. You don't have to go anything beyond that if you don't want to. It'll take up to 300 characters, or you can upload a document with more information about your business purpose. But don't get too much anxiety over this. Just be nice and straightforward. And if you can't describe your business in 1 or 2 sentences, then you should be going back to your SCORE mentor to try to learn how to do that, because that's an important aspect of being a business owner, is being able to describe your business fairly easily. All right. This is a screen that confuses people, and we talked before about registered agents, that if you use a professional registered agent, they would have a registered agent number. So when you got to this screen, you could just enter registered agent number and all of their information would populate because they're already on file with us. But if you're not, just click where it says enter a registered agent office. That's where you could put in your name and address, or the name and address of someone else. Here's my little tip of the day that is off topic but relevant here, is the word or. I cannot tell you how many times I help people simply because they're not reading the screen carefully and miss that word or. And this is one of the pages where that happens. They call me up and they say, I need a registered agent number. I'm serving as my own registered agent and it's asking me for a registered agent number. I say, well, did you see the word or on that page where it says enter the registered agent /office or the registered agent number? You don't need the registered agent number. Just click where it says registered agent office and submit your information. So, and that's true of a lot of different websites. Always look for that word or. There's usually multiple ways for you to accomplish what you're trying to do. And if you do both, the computer will probably reject it. So always remember that. Always look for the word or and. If it's an and, then you got to do both. If it's an or, you only have to do one. All right. So some of the other screens I did not do screenshots of every screen, but I do want to just give you some heads up. So the first thing is they're going to ask you, because again, I am looking at LLCs primarily because that's the most common way to form a business. But they're going to ask you for the members of an LLC, the owners of the LLC. You can have up to 10, but you have to at least have one member of the LLC. And they're going to ask you for some of the information about that, about those members. You can also, if you're a corporation, they're going to ask you about stockholders and the board of directors. excuse me, not the board of directors. That's actually a mistake. It should be the corporate officers. It could be the directors as well, but you'll have, they could be directors as well. But you'll get asked that question as well. And when you're done with all of this, you're going to get a confirmation, and you're going to get a copy of a place. You're going to get a place where you can download a copy of your certificate of formation. That's a document that you want to save. That goes into your business records. It's important. And they're going to issue you that 10-digit entity ID number that I mentioned before. All right. At this point, you have a business. You have an LLC or a corporation or a limited liability partnership or whatever legal entity that you set up. And the next step in this process is to register that legal entity for taxes. And we usually say for tax and employer purposes. So if you go back to that registration page that I showed you up front, that the red arrow now moved to the second step, to the NJ REG online form. So that's what you're going to do to register your business for tax and employer purposes. If you are a sole proprietorship or a partnership, you didn't do all of this formation document stuff because it's not a legal entity, but you also have to do the NJ REG form. So if I were to click where you see on the bottom on that blue bar where it says general partnerships, proprietorships, or self-employed, that would expand, and instead of the two-step process, it would just have the one step of filing the NJ reg form. But you can click on it here. It doesn't matter. It's the same link. But that's where you are going to start the process for registering for taxes. This is the first screen. You'll notice I have two red bars here. The first one is to register a business entity. That is, again, for registering for taxes for the entity that you just started. And then if you're a sole proprietorship, you're going to click on the second one, register a partnership or proprietorship. All right. I am not going to go through the slides on this for this section, only because one, it's difficult for me to capture those slides because I am not registering a real entity, and also for time's sake. But I do want to talk about a couple of things you're going to be asked in there that can be confusing. All right. What they're going to ask you about being an 1120 filer or a 1065 filer. For a business entity, an LLC is what's called a disregarded entity by the IRS. They don't recognize LLCs. So if you're a sole member LLC, remember I told you members are the owners. So I'm the only owner of my LLC. I can file as if I'm a sole proprietorship for taxes. Doesn't mean you're a sole proprietor. It means you're filing as a sole proprietorship for taxes only. And that's fine. It means you report everything on your personal income taxes. You could choose to file as a corporation. That would be an 1120 filer. There may be some reason that I have not thought of that where you would want to do that, because it makes things a lot more complicated. Typically, you would not do that. But again, there may be some reasons you would. Then you have a 1065 filer. That's a partnership filing. So if you have a partner, if you have multiple partners, at least one, you would file a 1065. You would be a 1065 filer with the IRS. You would also register that way in New Jersey. Your accountant can explain to you, but that requires you to file a 1065 partnership return when you pay your taxes. The question I get a lot is they're going to ask you about, are you going to have employees? The members of your LLCs are not usually considered employees, even if they work in the LLC. So I would say, I would answer that no. However, stockholders of a corporation that are going to actually work in the corporation, you could be a stockholder and not contribute to the corporation besides your money in any way. That would be different. But if a stockholder is going to be an employee of the corporation, you would say yes. So that's a slightly different standard for the two. And that's important actually when it comes to workman's compensation insurance. If you have no employee, if you have if you have an LLC and you're working within that LLC, you do not have to be covered under workman's comp insurance. However, if you're the stockholder of a corporation and you're working in that corporation, you do. So that can save you some money if you're an LLC, because you don't have to cover yourself with workman's comp. They're going to ask you about purchasing items for resale and will you be collecting sales tax? If you purchase, the reason we ask you that is because we want to know whether or not you're going to be collecting and remitting sales tax. Remember, on taxable transaction, you're going to have to collect the sales tax, and then your responsibility is to remit that back to the state. It isn't your money. If you collect sales tax from your customers, please don't spend it. You have to give it to the state, so don't spend it. And then there's also a resale certificate that allows you to purchase items that you're going to resell tax exempt. I can go over all that with you. I'm not going to spend waste too much time. It's not a waste of time, but it's just a limited time we have today. So I'm not going to cover that, but you reach out to me, I can explain all that to you as well. You will receive a 12-digit tax identification number. That is your state tax ID number. It will be, as I mentioned before, I hinted at before, it will be your EIN number with 3 digits added to the end. That becomes your state tax identification number. And that's the same number you will use for all your tax obligations. You're withholding taxes for your employees. So when you file for the unemployment taxes and disability taxes and Family Leave Act, those are all going to be under that same ID number, as well as your sales tax and any other taxes that you have to pay to both the state and the federal government. So you'll be using those 3 numbers extensively. So the document you're going to have is an SS4 form from the IRS that it's going to give you that 9-digit employer identification number. Save that. You're going to need that. You're probably going to be asked for that from the bank when you go to open your first checking account. You're going to need your certificate of formation. They will probably ask you for that as well. That will have your 10-digit entity ID number. Like I say, that responds back to your corporate documents, your corporate records, and is responsible for, you're going to need that rather when you do your annual report, or if you went in to amend any of your charter documents for some reason. And you're going to have a document called a business registration certificate and that 12-digit entity ID number. Excuse me, that 12-digit state tax ID number, which is your entity, your EIN. Even I'm getting the names confused. EIN plus the 3-digit code. The business registration certificate, people refer to that as your business license. It is not your business license. As I mentioned before, licenses are different. Reach out to me. We can discuss what your business model is and whether or not you're going to be required to have a license. There are some other resources I wanted to point out. I've already talked about the Navigator and the live chat, but the Division of Revenue and Enterprise Services, which is part of the Treasury Department, where you're going to be, where all of these forms that you're filling out are housed. They have put out a series of videos to teach you the same things that I just talked about, forming a business and registering it for taxes. They also have some videos there on getting into PBS, which is a Premier Business Services. It allows you to access some of your filings online. And there's 6 videos there. So I do recommend people jump on that site, take a look at those videos. They're anywhere from 8 or 9 minutes to 15 minutes long, but they can be very helpful to you. All right. That's really the whole process. If you got those 3 documents that I talked about and those 3 numbers, you are a New Jersey business. And here's my contact. Here's more contact information for us at the business.nj.gov site and our call center. I know you're going to get these slides, so I'm going to just stop sharing so that we can come back here and I can answer any questions. I know we're running short on time, but I'm happy to try to answer any questions or help you in any way.
We have a couple of questions in the chat room. Connie is asking for a professional corporation, so I guess a C Corp. She's being asked to put the number of shares, and what does that mean? She's just starting a medical practice and she is the sole provider.
Okay, so a professional corporation is so the way that is set up is that it blocks the liability of the professional from affecting the practice overall. So if you have 3 different medical providers and one of them messes up and creates a liability for themselves because of their professional practice, a problem within their professional responsibilities, then they may hold that liability themselves without affecting the other members of the professional corporation. So that's the reason why you set up a professional corporation. It's for professional businesses where the individual professional license holders have a responsibility that could create liability exposure. So the answer to your question is you can put however many shares of stock you want. If you want to put in 1,000 shares or 5,000 shares, and then you own all of those shares, and then you can always add other professionals along the way, you can do that. But that's the way it professional corporations work. So some medical practices, because they don't plan on have multiple providers at that practice, will set up LLCs instead. I'm not telling you that's the right way to go, especially if you plan on hopefully expanding one day. I'm just telling you that that is another option for you. You don't have to be a professional corporation, even though you're providing professional services. But if you have questions about that, talk to your attorney, talk to your accountant. And like I say, always be thinking long term. What do I think I want to do 5 years from now? If I want to bring on other providers, then maybe that's something the professional corporation would be the right way to go.
Okay. So another question is, can I change the name of my company but still use the same EIN number?
Yes. Yep. You would amend your charter documents. Yeah, you would amend your charter documents. But I'm gonna I was gonna add this to the slide, but for time I didn't. There is another way to do things like that. It's called an alternate name. Remember, I talked about a trade name. Like, I'm doing business myself as a sole proprietorship, but I create a trade name. That's a name I'm allowed to use, even though it's really me doing business as myself. There's another version of that. People will incorrectly refer to as a DBA. Legally, DBA means something else. That's called an alternate name. So I have a company, which I actually think I used before, Acme Food and Beverage LLC. I then register an alternate name, which is Tony's Pizza, and I open a pizza parlor. I'm allowed to use that name, Tony's Pizza, even though the corporate name is different. So you can change your legal name. There's not a problem with doing that. But the other option would be to register an alternate name that you will be allowed to use without actually changing your legal name. And I can show you how to do that if you reach out to me.
Okay. So we have 2 questions about registering the name. I personally have a small business and I registered only in Monmouth County. But how do you register a name so it covers the whole state? And the second part of that question was from somebody else. This person has an online store and registered with the local county, but does she need to register in all the other counties in New Jersey?
If you're an LLC or a legal entity, the state registers your name and you are covered in the entire state. However, if you're a sole proprietorship or a general partnership, again, one of the disadvantages is you have to go to every county clerk, all 21 counties, and register that trade name in each of those counties. It's $50 a piece in order to protect it throughout the entire state. So you'd have to do all 21 counties. Again, talk to your attorneys. You could also create a trademark with the name or a service mark if you provide a service, which will protect the name to some degree. Doesn't mean somebody couldn't start a business using the same name, but it does mean that you will have at least some legal protection to enforce your intellectual property. Again, I'm not an attorney, So talk to an attorney that specializes in intellectual property, and they can talk to you about this. So if I go out and I start a business that's called McDonald's tomorrow, I could probably get away with it for a while, but sooner or later, McDonald's is going to sue me and say, wait a minute, I could probably do it if it's McDonald's pharmacy, but if it's a restaurant, I'm going to be in trouble from McDonald's Corporation. It's not probably a bad example because they're registered everywhere, but something close to that. If you register a business that already exists, and they have a trademark on that name, I may get into you could get into some hot water that way too. So
We
it
did,
gets-
interestingly enough, we did last week actually have an attorney, Michael Ansell, on a call and a webinar. And we are going to have him back to talk about negotiating contracts if you're a small business owner. But he was very helpful and very informative. And we recorded that session also. So if anybody wants a copy of that session, I'm happy to send it to them. Another question is, although I live in New Jersey, my first business project is in Delaware. Should I incorporate in Delaware?
There are advantages for some businesses to incorporate in Delaware. For most businesses, it's irrelevant. You register where you're conducting
Where you live.
business, which would be in New Jersey. So one of the advantages, Delaware has a more friendly laws on corporations. So if you are a big company and and someone's going to sue you, you want them to sue you in Delaware because they have a more friendly corporate laws in Delaware. If you're going to be doing business, there's some tax advantages. If you're doing business multiple places, including Delaware, you really don't have that much of an advantage for registering in Delaware if you're primarily going to be doing business in New Jersey, because you're going to have to register. You still have to register here. You just have to register as a foreign entity. And you still have all the tax obligations and all the annual report obligations, all the other obligations. So it really doesn't make that much sense, except for very, very narrow times, which, again, you can talk to your accountant or your attorney about. But no. So I typically say register in the state where you live and where you're going to be doing business.
Okay, so I think we had one other question early on that I missed, right, Nancy?
Yeah, if you are a sole proprietor, can you purchase liability protection that's equivalent to the protection an LLC would provide?
No. In short answer, no. You can buy as much liability protection as you want. I can get $1 million worth of liability protection, but if I get a liability exposure for $2 million, I'm out of luck. I'm on the hook for $1 million. Loans are a little different because most lenders are going to require a personal guarantee. But the other liabilities that you could face, I mean, I could be installing a new hot water heater in somebody's house. I used to be a plumber. New hot water heater in somebody's house and accidentally light the place on fire with my torch. And I'm in $1 million home, and I kill their dog, and somebody gets injured in the fire. I'm out of luck. I mean, there's no way my liability insurance is going to cover all that damage, and the injury and the lifetime of care they may need. So no. The answer is no. Yeah, you're never gonna have enough liability insurance.
Well, Don, just to clarify, with an LLC, I think the liability is with the LLC and it doesn't go after you personally.
That's exactly the point. That's exactly
right. So in both situations, you need to have liability insurance.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. You have to have liability insurance because you don't want your company being destroyed either. So you have to have liability insurance. Every business should have liability insurance, but you are not personally liable for the damages. Here's what I talk about this and other times. If I knit socks and I sell them at flea markets across the state, what's my liability exposure? Somebody getting a rash? Yeah, who knows? So I would have no problem operating as a sole proprietorship in that scenario. If I have a restaurant, one bad batch of potato salad, one contaminated head of lettuce could get 50 people sick. I'm done if I'm a sole proprietorship. They're taking my house, they're taking my the college fund I have for my kids, they're taking everything. So so it's not only what your liability, exposure is like, but it's also how much risk you're willing to take on yourself. You have to make that decision. So, but like I say, typically I recommend you should always be some sort of legal entity.
This has been very helpful, and the slides with all of the links that you're going to provide us, that will be great. So we'll send them out to everybody that attended today. We appreciate, Don, your time. We look forward to seeing you again on another webinar where we'll have some other subjects covered. Please go to our SCORE New Jersey and SCORE NJ groups on Facebook and LinkedIn. Go to the Central Jersey website. It's score.org/ and the name of the chapter. So in this case, it's Central Jersey or Northeast New Jersey or Northwest New Jersey or Princeton or Monmouth. Join us next week for our webinar next Thursday on improving your SEO from a marketing perspective, and watch our websites and our links and our pages on Facebook and LinkedIn. Don, thank you so much for all this valuable information and for answering all those questions. I did see the one note that somebody wanted the legal presentation. I did copy down your email. If you need anyone from SCORE, go to score.org/find-mentor, or actually you can go to Nancy and you can request, working with Nancy. Nancy is one of our certified mentors. It's Nancy. How do you say her last name? Verdin at scorevolunteer.org. So every one of the mentors have their first name, a dot, their last name, and their emails are scorevolunteer.org. So please reach out to them, reach out to me, and definitely reach out to Don and his team of people at the Business Action Center. Thank you again, Don. Have a wonderful day. Appreciate your time. And thank you, Nancy, for hosting today. Thank you.
Thank
See you all next Thursday, hopefully. Take care. Bye-bye.
Thank you.